After 19 years, the Pittsburgh Steelers officially have a new head coach. Mike Tomlin stepped away from the organization 3 weeks ago, and the Steelers decided to move in a direction that honestly surprised a lot of people. They hired Mike McCarthy, the former head coach of the Green Bay Packers and the Dallas Cowboys. At 62 years old, McCarthy is now the oldest head coaching hire in Steelers franchise history. When you look at the history of this organization, that alone should raise eyebrows. Since 1969, the Steelers have had only 3 head coaches, the fewest in the NFL. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin. That's it. Chuck Noll is the greatest coach in franchise history, winning 4 Super Bowls, and at the time he was a younger, defensive-minded head coach. Bill Cowher followed that same philosophy. He leaned defense, toughness, and culture, even though he had a background in special teams. Then you had Mike Tomlin, a young defensive coordinator from the Vikings who went on to never have a losing season in Pittsburgh. Before we dive deeper, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We are on the way to 10,000 subscribers, and your support means a lot. For the first time ever, the Steelers have gone away from that blueprint. This is the first offensive-minded head coach they've hired, and it's not a young, up-and-coming mind either. It's a veteran coach whose best years are likely behind him. Brian Flores felt like the perfect fit for this job. He had already been in the building. He knew the culture. He knew the people. He is widely considered one of the best defensive minds in the NFL, and you could argue he's the best defensive coordinator in football. If they weren't going to go with Flores, then maybe you look at someone like Chris Shula from the Rams, a young defensive coordinator, part of a strong coaching tree, and the grandson of Don Shula. For anyone who doesn't know, Don Shula once recommended that Dan Rooney hire Chuck Noll. That worked out pretty well. If not Shula, they had Anthony Weaver in the building twice. High-energy coach, former Dolphins defensive coordinator, and someone who had success in Miami. There were legitimate options. Instead, they landed on Mike McCarthy. Now, I don't want this to sound like I'm saying Mike McCarthy is a terrible coach. He's not. His resume looks good on the surface. 13 seasons in Green Bay, a Super Bowl win, a strong regular season record. He helped get the most out of Brett Favre. He played a major role in drafting and developing Aaron Rodgers into one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history. Funny enough, that Super Bowl win came against the Steelers with Big Ben and Mike Tomlin. But things eventually fell apart in Green Bay. Then he went to Dallas. 5 seasons with the Cowboys, a 49-35 record, and just 1 playoff win. And that 1 playoff win came against a Buccaneers team that was clearly falling apart in Tom Brady's final season. More often than not, Dallas was one and done under Mike McCarthy. When you really look at it, you're getting the offensive version of Mike Tomlin. Solid regular seasons, disappointing playoff results, and an offense that eventually becomes stale. This hire does not move the needle for the Steelers. One of my biggest concerns was the ownership side of this. Dan Rooney hired Chuck Noll and Bill Cowher. He also signed off on Mike Tomlin. He was an incredible owner, and sadly, he passed away in 2017. Since then, things haven't felt the same. Kevin Colbert is gone. Omar is now the general manager, and that's where this hire starts to make more sense. Omar has a long-standing connection with Mike McCarthy that dates back to 2000. When Khan was a scout with the Saints and McCarthy was the offensive coordinator, they traveled together. They spent a lot of time together. So when reports came out about heavy interest in McCarthy, I immediately raised an eyebrow. This feels less like a vision-based hire and more like a comfort hire. McCarthy deserves credit for developing quarterbacks in the past, but that was a different NFL. The league has changed. Defenses are faster, smarter, and more complex. And when you look at his most recent work, the offense with Dak Prescott became generic. When Dak was healthy, they went 12-5, but that success never translated to the postseason. When defenses took away the quick game and applied pressure, the offense stalled. We saw the same thing happen repeatedly with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. And now the Steelers are trying to reconnect that McCarthy-Rodgers relationship in 2026. Rodgers is 42 years old. He's not the same player anymore. He's not a top 10 quarterback. He's not even top 15. When he's protected and can get the ball out quickly, he can still function. But when pressure arrives and those underneath throws are taken away, he looks below average. We saw it against Seattle, against the Chargers, against Buffalo, against Cleveland, and again in the playoffs. This isn't a division where you can get away with that. Baltimore is still strong defensively. Cincinnati still has Joe Burrow. Cleveland is a mess right now, but that doesn't automatically make the Steelers contenders. This team has been stuck in a cycle where they refuse to rebuild, and it's cost them. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016. We're now in 2026. Art Rooney has made it clear he doesn't believe in rebuilding, only retooling. And that mindset has locked this franchise into mediocrity. They're never bad enough to get elite draft picks, but they're never good enough to seriously contend. They're constantly picking in the late teens or early 20s. That's where franchises go to die. Look at the offense beyond quarterback. DK Metcalf is still a legitimate #1 receiver, but outside of him, there are major issues. Aging veterans, unreliable options, and short-term fixes. And now you're seeing teams cater to Aaron Rodgers by bringing in his former teammates. The Jets did it. The Steelers have flirted with it. Why are you building around a quarterback who won't be here in 2 years? The same goes for Mike McCarthy. He's 62 years old. There's no long-term security here. There's no 5 to 10-year vision. You're patching holes and hoping for one more run. Even defensively, the roster is aging. Cam Hayward could retire. TJ Watt is still great, but he's expensive and no longer dominant on every snap. Patrick Queen likely won't be back. The secondary is in flux. This team needs a reset, not a nostalgia tour. What frustrates me the most is that there were better options. If you wanted offense, you had access to the Shanahan and McVay coaching trees. Clint Kubiak, Nate Scheelhaas, innovative minds who focus on the trenches and adapt to the modern NFL. The Steelers didn't even interview some of them. That tells you everything. This hire feels like fear. Fear of rebuilding, fear of bottoming out, fear of starting over. So instead, they chose familiarity, comfort, a known name. Maybe they win 10 or 11 games. On paper, it'll look fine. But when January comes around, we've seen this movie before, and the ending never changes. This is what makes the move so disappointing. It's not that the Steelers took a swing and missed, it's that they never really swung at all. In a league that's constantly evolving, Pittsburgh chose to stay safe. They passed on innovation, youth, and long-term upside in favor of something familiar. That mindset might keep them competitive on Sundays, but it doesn't win in January. The rest of the NFL is building for the future, while the Steelers are clinging to the past. And until that changes, this franchise will stay stuck right where it is. Good enough to matter, but never good enough to win. I want the Steelers to succeed, but based on history, based on roster construction, and based on who Mike McCarthy has been over the last decade, this just doesn't make sense. Let me know how you feel about the hire in the comments. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. If you liked the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, stay safe, stay positive, and I'll catch you next time.